The smell of charcoal and lighter fluid always takes me back to simpler times. Standing in my backyard on this perfect Saturday afternoon in July, I watch the flames dance beneath the grill grates and wonder when everything started going sideways. My name is Will Kavanagh, and I'm 41 years old with the kind of engineering mind that notices patterns, inconsistencies, and details that other people miss. Today, those skills are about to serve me in ways I never imagined. "Will, honey, can you check if we have enough ice?" Ellie calls from the kitchen window. My wife of 15 years looks radiant in her sundress, her blonde hair catching the light as she arranges appetizers on our granite countertop. She's always been the social coordinator of our marriage, the one who remembers birthdays and organizes gatherings like today's annual barbecue. "Already on it," I reply, lifting the cooler lid to reveal perfectly arranged beer bottles nestled in crushed ice. Everything has to be perfect for Ellie. That's just how she operates. Our backyard is filling up with familiar faces. The Hendersons from next door arrived first, as always, carrying their famous potato salad. Janet and Mike Thompson followed shortly after, their twin boys immediately gravitating toward our pool. The afternoon sun filters through the oak trees I planted when we first moved to this suburban paradise in Westfield, creating dancing shadows across the perfectly manicured lawn. But the guest I'm most interested in observing today is Dwyer, my best friend since college. He's standing near the deck stairs, already nursing his second beer, his sales executive charm on full display as he entertains a small group with some story about his latest client. Connor has that effortless charisma that drew me to him 20 years ago when we were roommates at State. He's the kind of guy who remembers everyone's name, asks about your kids, and always knows the right thing to say. "Will!" Connor spots me and raises his bottle in greeting. "Another perfect day for the annual Kavanagh barbecue tradition. You've outdone yourself with the weather coordination." I laugh and walk over to join the group. "Yeah, I called in some favors with Mother Nature. Cost me extra this year." Connor's wife, Melissa, rolls her eyes good-naturedly. "Don't encourage him, Will. He already thinks he controls the universe from his office downtown." She's a sharp woman, Melissa. Works as a financial advisor and has this way of seeing through people's nonsense that I've always appreciated. Today, though, there's something different in her expression when she looks at Connor. A tightness around her eyes that wasn't there at last year's gathering. "Where's Ellie hiding?" Connor asks, scanning the crowd. "I brought that wine she mentioned loving from our Napa trip." "Kitchen," I reply, watching his face carefully. She's been in full hostess mode since dawn. Something flickers across Connor's features. Just for a second, but my engineer's mind catalogs it anyway. The way his eyes light up when I mention Ellie's location. The slight unconscious step he takes toward the house. The way he adjusts his shirt collar. "I'll go say hello," he says casually. "Maybe see if she needs help with anything." Melissa's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. "I'm sure she has everything under control, Connor. She always does." But Connor is already walking toward the sliding glass doors, empty beer bottle in hand as his excuse to head inside. I watch him go, noting the purposeful stride that doesn't quite match his casual demeanor. "He's been restless lately," Melissa says quietly, almost to herself. Then, louder. "How's work treating you, Will? Still designing those water treatment systems?" "Municipal infrastructure," I correct automatically. Though I did just finish a project for the county that I'm pretty proud of. Sometimes the most important work happens where people can't see it. The irony of that statement won't hit me until later. The afternoon progresses with the comfortable rhythm of long-established friendships. I man the grill, flipping burgers and rotating corn on the cob, while fielding the usual questions about marinades and cooking temperatures. The Thompson boys cannonball into the pool despite their mother's protests about waiting 30 minutes after eating. Janet Henderson compliments Ellie's flower garden for the third year running, as if she hasn't seen the same roses blooming every summer since we moved in. but my attention keeps drifting to the kitchen window, where I can see Ellie and Connor engaged in what appears to be animated conversation. They're standing closer than necessary, their heads bent together over something on the counter. When Ellie laughs, she touches Connor's arm in a gesture that seems too familiar, too comfortable. "Will, you're burning the burgers," Mike Thompson calls out, snapping me back to reality. I flip the patties quickly, cursing under my breath. The engineer in me hates making careless mistakes, and I pride myself on consistency. But today, my focus is scattered across multiple variables I'm trying to process simultaneously. "Everything okay, man?" Mike asks, stepping closer to the grill. "You seem distracted." "Just thinking about a work project," I lie smoothly. "You know how it is." Mike nods knowingly. He's an accountant, so he understands the way professional problems can follow you home. "Well, whatever it is, try to leave it at the office for today. Life's too short to spend your weekends worrying about work." If only it were that simple. The sun is starting to sink lower in the sky when I notice Connor and Ellie have disappeared from the kitchen window. I scan the backyard, accounting for all our guests. The Hendersons are setting up the horseshoe game near the back fence. The Thompsons are corralling their boys out of the pool. Melissa is deep in conversation with Janet about some book club selection, but Connor and Ellie are nowhere to be seen. I excuse myself from the grill, asking Mike to keep an eye on the remaining corn, and head toward the house. The sliding door opens silently on well-oiled tracks, and I step into the air-conditioned coolness of our family room. The house feels different somehow, charged with an energy that makes the hair on my arms stand up. I can hear voices coming from the kitchen. Low, intimate tones that don't match the casual conversation of old friends helping with party preparations. My footsteps are silent on the hardwood floors as I approach, and I catch fragments of their exchange. "Can't keep doing this." "No, but it's so hard when—" "Your husband is right outside." I pause at the kitchen doorway, my engineering mind automatically calculating angles and sightlines. From where I'm standing, I can see them, but they can't see me. Connor has his back to the island, while Ellie faces him, her hands resting on the granite countertop. The space between them is minimal, intimate, in a way that makes my stomach clench. "We have to be more careful," Ellie whispers, her voice carrying a breathiness I recognize from our early dating years, but haven't heard in months. "I know," Connor replies, his hand reaching up to touch her cheek. "But seeing you every day and pretending like nothing's changed, it's becoming impossible." The pieces click into place with the mechanical precision of a well-designed system. The late nights Ellie claimed were work events. The new attention to her appearance, the gym membership she suddenly needed, the way she's been distant and distracted during our conversations. The phone calls she takes in the other room, claiming they're from her sister in Portland. My best friend and my wife are having an affair. The rational part of my brain wants to storm into the kitchen and confront them both immediately, demand explanations, express outrage, force them to face the consequences of their betrayal. But the engineer in me recognizes that emotional reactions rarely produce optimal outcomes. Instead, I take a deep breath and consider my options. I could create a scene right now, in front of all our friends and neighbors. The satisfaction would be immediate, but short-lived, and the fallout would be messy and public. Or I could gather more information, understand the full scope of what I'm dealing with, and respond strategically rather than reactively. The sound of footsteps on the deck outside makes the decision for me. Someone is approaching the sliding door, probably looking for the bathroom or another drink. I need to act natural, maintain the status quo until I can process this information properly. I clear my throat loudly and walk into the kitchen with deliberate, heavy footsteps. "Hey there, you two. Hiding from the party?" Connor and Ellie spring apart like teenagers caught by parents, but I keep my expression neutral and friendly. Connor's face flushes slightly, while Ellie immediately busies herself rearranging appetizer platters that were already perfectly arranged. "Just grabbing some more beer," Connor says, his voice slightly higher than normal. "And Ellie was showing me those new cabinet handles you installed." "Ah, the soft close hinges," I reply conversationally, opening the refrigerator to retrieve 2 cold bottles. "German engineering. They'll outlast the house itself." I twist off the caps and hand 1 bottle to Connor, keeping the other for myself. "To friendship," I say, raising my beer in a toast. The relief on both their faces is almost comical. Connor clinks his bottle against mine with genuine enthusiasm, while Ellie manages a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. "To friendship," Connor echoes. 20 years and counting. 20 years of shared history. College roommates who became business contacts who became family friends. Connor was my best man at our wedding. I was his. We've vacationed together, celebrated promotions together, supported each other through the challenges of building careers and marriages and adult lives, and now he's been sleeping with my wife. "I should get back to the grill," I announce, taking a long drink from my beer. "Mike's probably wondering where I disappeared to." "We'll be right out," Ellie says quickly. "I just need to refresh the ice bucket." I nod and head back toward the deck, leaving them alone in the kitchen. But as I slide the door closed behind me, I'm already formulating a plan. Because if there's one thing 20 years of engineering has taught me, it's that every system has vulnerabilities. You just have to know where to look. The rest of the party passes in a blur of forced normalcy. I flip burgers and make small talk, laugh at familiar jokes, and compliment Janet Henderson's potato salad recipe for what must be the 100th time over the years. But underneath the surface performance, my mind is racing through possibilities and calculations. I notice things I missed before. The way Connor's eyes follow Ellie as she moves through the crowd. How she gravitates toward him during group conversations, standing just slightly closer than necessary. The private smiles they exchange when they think no one is looking. The casual touches that linger a fraction of a second too long. How long has this been going on? Weeks? Months? The thought of them laughing about me behind my back, planning secret meetings while I worked late on municipal water systems, makes my jaw clench involuntarily. "Earth to Will," Melissa says, appearing at my elbow with an empty plate. "You look like you're solving world hunger over here." "Just thinking," I reply, forcing my attention back to the present moment. "Dangerous habit," she says with a wry smile. But there's something in her tone that makes me look at her more carefully. Sometimes ignorance really is bliss. Is she trying to tell me something? Does she know about Connor and Ellie? The possibility adds another variable to my growing list of unknowns. As the sun sets and the party winds down, guests begin the familiar ritual of gathering plates and saying goodbyes. The Hendersons are first to leave, as always, followed by the Thompsons with their exhausted boys wrapped in pool towels. Soon, it's just the 4 of us standing on the deck, surrounded by the debris of a successful gathering. "Another fantastic party," Connor says, pulling me into one of his characteristic bear hugs. "Same time next year?" "Wouldn't miss it," I reply, patting his back with what I hope appears to be genuine affection. Melissa kisses Ellie's cheek and thanks her for hosting, but I notice she doesn't hug Connor goodbye. Instead, she walks toward their car with purposeful strides, leaving him to follow. "See you Monday," Connor calls over his shoulder as they pull out of our driveway. Ellie and I stand in the gathering darkness, watching their taillights disappear down our tree-lined street. The silence between us feels different now, charged with secrets and unspoken truths. "Good party," she says finally. "Yeah," I agree. "Really good." But as we begin collecting empty bottles and paper plates, I'm already planning my next move. Because Connor made one crucial mistake today. He underestimated the power of modern technology and my particular expertise with electronic systems. The baby monitor we installed in our bedroom 3 years ago for my nephew's visits has a smartphone app that stores audio recordings in the cloud, and the kitchen, with its open floor plan and high ceilings, has surprisingly good acoustics. Later that night, after Ellie falls asleep beside me, I slip quietly into my home office and open the app on my laptop. The recordings are automatically organized by date and time, and I scroll back to this afternoon's party. There it is. A 47-minute audio file from the kitchen, time-stamped exactly when I saw Connor and Ellie whispering together. I plug in my headphones and press play. What I hear in that recording changes everything. The audio quality is better than I expected. Crystal clear voices, minimal background interference, every whispered confession preserved in digital perfection. I sit in my home office at 2 a.m, the rest of the house silent around me, and listen to my wife and my best friend destroy 20 years of trust in real time. God, I've missed you. Connor's voice comes through my headphones. It's been 3 days since we were alone together. I know, Ellie responds, and I can hear the smile in her voice. But Will's been working from home more often lately. It's getting harder to find excuses. Maybe we should tell him. Are you insane? Ellie's tone sharpens. Connor, he would never forgive us. Never. And Melissa, she'd take you for everything you're worth. There's a pause, followed by what sounds like movement, fabric rustling. The soft sound of bodies coming together. We can't keep meeting at the hotel, Connor says. The front desk clerk is starting to recognize me. I know a place, Ellie replies. My yoga instructor mentioned this little bed and breakfast about an hour north. Very discreet. When? Thursday. I'll tell Will I'm visiting my sister in Portland for the weekend. My hands are shaking as I pause the recording. Ellie hasn't visited her sister in over a year, but she's mentioned several weekend trips to Portland in recent months. Trips that apparently never happened. I restart the playback and continue listening to the systematic destruction of my marriage. Do you ever feel guilty? Connor asks. Every day, Ellie admits. But then I think about how happy you make me, how alive I feel when we're together, and the guilt just disappears. Will's a good guy. He is, she agrees. He's stable and reliable, and he loves me completely. But Connor, when's the last time he surprised me? When's the last time he looked at me like I was the most beautiful woman in the world? I look at you that way. I know you do. That's why this is so hard. The conversation continues for another 30 minutes, covering logistics and emotions and intimate details that make my stomach turn. They've been meeting regularly for 6 months. The hotel Connor mentioned is the Marriott downtown, where they've been using his corporate rate for afternoon encounters. They've used our house twice when I was traveling for work conferences. Our bed, our home, the sanctuary I thought we'd built together. But the most devastating revelation comes near the end of the recording when they're discussing future plans. I've been thinking about what you said, Ellie tells him, about making this permanent. And? I think you're right. We can't keep living this lie forever. So what do we do? I don't know yet. But Connor, I need you to understand something. If we do this, if we leave our marriages, there's no going back. We'll lose friends. Family members will take sides. It's going to be messy and complicated and expensive. I know, Connor replies. But Ellie, I love you. I'm in love with you. And I think I have been for years. The recording ends there, leaving me alone in my office with the weight of their betrayal pressing down on my chest like a physical force. I remove my headphones and stare at the computer screen, watching the audio waveform that represents the end of life as I know it. 20 years of friendship, 15 years of marriage, gone. But as I sit there in the darkness, something interesting happens. The initial shock and hurt begin to crystallize into something else entirely, something colder and more focused. The engineer in me starts to analyze the situation like any other problem, requiring a systematic solution. They think they hold all the cards. They believe they control the narrative, the timeline, the terms of engagement. But they've made a crucial error in their calculations. They've underestimated their opponent. I spend the rest of the night gathering additional evidence. Ellie's phone is charging on her nightstand, and her password is still our anniversary date. Her text messages reveal a months-long conversation thread with Connor that reads like a romance novel. Photos, plans, intimate details that confirm everything I heard in the audio recording. Her email account provides even more information. Hotel confirmations, restaurant reservations for two during times when she claimed to be shopping with girlfriends or working late. A saved draft email to her sister asking for advice about a complicated situation with feelings for someone who isn't Will. By dawn, I have enough evidence to destroy both of them in divorce court. But legal victory feels insufficient somehow. Too clean, too removed from the personal nature of their betrayal. I want them to understand what they've done, to experience the same shock and humiliation they've inflicted on me. I want them to know what it feels like to have their private world exposed without warning. Monday morning arrives with the artificial normalcy of routine. Ellie kisses me goodbye before leaving for her job at the public relations firm downtown. I go through the motions of reviewing project specifications for a water treatment facility in the next county, but my real focus is on planning. Connor calls around 10, as he has every Monday for the past 5 years. "Great party Saturday," he says, his voice carrying that familiar warmth that once meant friendship and now sounds like mockery. Ellie outdid herself with the appetizers. "She's good at making things look perfect on the surface," I reply, loading my words with double meaning he's too self-absorbed to catch. "Listen, I wanted to run something by you," Connor continues. "That new client I mentioned, the pharmaceutical company, they're looking for an engineering consultant for a facility expansion project. Big money, Will. Really big. I thought you might be interested. Under normal circumstances, I'd be grateful for the referral. Connor has sent several lucrative contracts my way over the years, and I've always appreciated his willingness to share opportunities. But now I understand the dynamic differently. He's been managing his guilt by throwing me professional bones, assuaging his conscience with business favors while he sleeps with my wife. Sounds interesting, I tell him. Email me the details. Will do, and hey, we should grab lunch this week, catch up properly. Absolutely, I lie, looking forward to it. After hanging up, I sit back in my desk chair and consider the irony. Connor wants to have lunch so he can look me in the eye while he lies about my wife. The psychology fascinates and disgusts me in equal measure. I spend the morning researching private investigators, but ultimately decide against hiring professional help. This situation requires a personal touch, and I have skills that most people lack. 20 years of engineering has taught me to be methodical, patient, and thorough. More importantly, it's taught me that the most effective solutions often involve using a system's own mechanisms against itself. Connor and Ellie have built their affair on secrecy and deception. They've created a private world that exists parallel to their public lives, complete with its own rules and rituals and shared language. But every system has weak points, and I'm going to find theirs. Tuesday evening, Ellie announces she's meeting her book club for dinner. She's been using this excuse for months, and I've never questioned it because I trusted her completely. Now I decide to verify her story. Which restaurant? I ask casually while loading the dishwasher. That new Italian place on Elm Street, she replies without hesitation. Marcello's. I nod and continue cleaning up from dinner, but after she leaves, I drive to Marcello's and park across the street. The restaurant is small and intimate, with large windows that provide a clear view of the interior. I can see every table from my position in the car. Ellie never shows up. At 9:30, she returns home with a story about the book club running late and how much she enjoyed the chicken parmesan. She even has a business card from Marcello's in her purse, which she shows me when I ask about the restaurant. The level of premeditation is staggering. She's not just lying, she's creating elaborate cover stories complete with props and details. This isn't a momentary lapse in judgment or a spontaneous attraction that got out of hand. This is a calculated deception that requires planning and effort, and a fundamental disregard for our marriage. Wednesday morning, I call in sick to work and follow Connor instead. He leaves his house at the usual time, drives to his office building downtown, and parks in the executive garage. But instead of going inside, he walks 2 blocks to the Marriott Hotel and takes the elevator to the 3rd floor. I don't need to see more. The pattern is clear, the evidence overwhelming. But I'm not ready to act yet. I need to understand the full scope of their operation, map out all the connections and implications before I make my move. Thursday arrives with Ellie's announcement that she's visiting her sister in Portland for the weekend. I'll leave after work Friday and drive back Sunday evening, she tells me over breakfast. Amy's going through a rough patch with her divorce, and she really needs someone to talk to. The lie rolls off her tongue with practiced ease. She's even managed to work up some fake concern for her sister's fictional marital problems. The irony would be amusing if it weren't so personally devastating. Give Amy my best, I say, buttering my toast with deliberate calm. I hope things work out for her. Thanks, honey. You're so understanding. Understanding. Right. Friday evening, I watch Ellie pack her weekend bag with the same attention to detail she brings to everything else. Comfortable clothes for lounging around with her sister. A nice dress for dinner out. Toiletries and makeup organized in her travel case with military precision. She kisses me goodbye at the front door, her lips soft and familiar against mine. For just a moment, I remember what it felt like to trust this woman completely, to believe that we were building a life together based on honesty and mutual respect. Then she drives away to spend the weekend with my best friend, and I'm left alone with my anger and my plans. I don't follow them to their romantic getaway. I don't need to see them together to understand what's happening. Instead, I spend the weekend preparing for what comes next. The first step is making copies of everything. The audio recording from the baby monitor gets saved to multiple devices and cloud storage accounts. Screenshots of text messages and emails get organized into folders with clear timestamps and context. I create a comprehensive timeline of their affair, complete with dates, locations, and supporting evidence. The second step is research. I need to understand Connor's vulnerabilities, the pressure points that will cause him the most damage when pressed. His job at the pharmaceutical sales company is built on relationships and reputation. His marriage to Melissa represents financial stability and social standing. His image as the charming, trustworthy friend everyone loves is central to his identity. All of these things can be weaponized against him. The third step is choosing the right delivery method. I could confront them directly, but that gives them the opportunity to control the narrative, to minimize the damage and spin the situation to their advantage. I could hire a lawyer and let the legal system handle everything, but that's slow and expensive and ultimately unsatisfying. Or I could use their own tactics against them. Secrecy, surprise, the sudden revelation of information they thought was safely hidden. By Sunday evening, when Ellie returns from her fictional trip to Portland with stories about her sister's apartment and their shopping expedition to Powell's Books, I've made my decision. It's time to send an anonymous package. The beauty of the plan lies in its simplicity. No dramatic confrontations, no public scenes, no criminal activity that could complicate my divorce proceedings. Just information, delivered to the right person at the right time to achieve maximum impact. Melissa Dwyer is going to learn exactly what kind of man she married, and Connor is going to discover that some secrets are impossible to keep. Monday morning, I drive to a FedEx store 3 towns over, where no one knows me and the security cameras won't matter. The package I'm sending contains a single USB drive loaded with audio files, screenshots, and a typed summary of Connor and Ellie's 6-month affair. No return address, no identifying marks, just cold facts delivered with surgical precision. The timing is crucial. I've studied Connor's schedule for years, and I know he never gets home before 6:30 on weekdays. Melissa, however, works from her home office and is usually there to receive deliveries. The package will arrive Tuesday afternoon, giving her several hours to process the information before Connor walks through their front door. I imagine her opening the innocuous envelope, plugging the USB drive into her laptop, and hearing her husband's voice confessing his love for my wife. The shock, the disbelief, the growing certainty as she reviews the evidence I've compiled. By the time Connor arrives home, she'll know everything. The thought should give me satisfaction, but instead I feel hollow, mechanical, like I'm executing an engineering solution rather than destroying 2 marriages. Maybe that's the only way to get through this without completely falling apart. Tuesday crawls by with excruciating slowness. I try to focus on work, reviewing specifications for a municipal water treatment upgrade, but my mind keeps drifting to the package making its way through the delivery system toward Connor's house. Every hour that passes brings me closer to the moment when this secret war becomes visible to someone else. At 2:15, my phone buzzes with a delivery confirmation. The package has been received and signed for by Dwyer. Now I wait. Ellie comes home at her usual time, cheerful and unsuspecting. She tells me about her day at the PR firm, a difficult client who wants to change their entire campaign strategy 3 weeks before launch. I nod and make appropriate responses while internally counting down the hours until Connor's world explodes. "You're quiet tonight," Ellie observes over dinner. "Everything okay?" "Just thinking about a project," I reply, which is technically true. "Complex problem that requires a systematic approach." She reaches across the table and squeezes my hand. "You'll figure it out. You always do." The casual affection in her gesture makes my stomach clench. She's still playing the role of the loving wife, still maintaining the performance even though she's planning to leave me for my best friend. The depth of her deception continues to amaze me. My phone remains silent through dinner and the evening news. No frantic calls from Connor, no tearful confessions from Ellie. Whatever is happening at the Dwyer house, it's staying contained for now. I go to bed at my usual time, listening to Ellie's breathing settle into the rhythm of sleep beside me. But I lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if Connor is sleeping alone tonight or if he's explaining himself to his wife in their guest bedroom. Wednesday morning brings the first crack in the facade. Connor doesn't call with his usual Monday, Wednesday, Friday check-in. The silence is notable because he's maintained this routine for 5 years, without exception. Even when he was traveling for business or dealing with family emergencies, he'd find a way to touch base. At 10:30, I break protocol and call him. "Connor Dwyer's office," his assistant answers. "He's not available right now. Can I take a message?" "It's Will Kavanagh," I say. "Just checking in about that pharmaceutical project he mentioned." "Oh, hi, Will. Connor called in sick today. I can have him get back to you when he returns." Sick. Right. I hang up and lean back in my desk chair, imagining the scene that must have played out at the Dwyer house last night. Melissa confronting Connor with the evidence, his denials crumbling as she played the audio recordings. The terrible moment when he realized his secret was exposed and his marriage was probably over. Part of me feels guilty for destroying their relationship, but the rational part of my brain reminds me that I didn't create this situation. I'm simply revealing the truth that Connor and Ellie created through their choices. Wednesday evening, Ellie seems distracted during dinner. She checks her phone several times, frowning at the screen before putting it face down on the table. "Everything all right?" I ask. "Connor's not responding to my texts," she says without thinking, then catches herself. "I mean, Melissa asked me to check on him. Apparently, he called in sick today." The lie comes so naturally that I almost admire her skill. She's managed to turn her concern about her lover into worry about her friend's husband, maintaining her cover story even under stress. Maybe he's really sick, I suggest. Food poisoning or something. Maybe, she agrees, but her expression remains troubled. After dinner, she disappears into our bedroom to make a phone call. I can hear her voice through the door, urgent and worried, though I can't make out specific words. When she emerges 20 minutes later, her face is pale. Melissa wants to have coffee tomorrow morning, she announces. She sounded upset about something. Here we go. Thursday morning, Ellie leaves for her coffee date with unusual reluctance. She changes clothes twice, checks her appearance in the mirror repeatedly, and seems to be stalling for time. You look fine, I assure her. Melissa's your friend. Whatever's bothering her, I'm sure she just needs someone to talk to. If only she knew. After Ellie leaves, I try to focus on work, but find myself constantly checking the clock. The coffee shop they frequent is only 15 minutes away, so I expect the confrontation to begin around 10:30. At 11:15, my phone rings. Ellie's name appears on the screen. Will? Her voice is shaky, barely controlled. I need you to come pick me up. What's wrong? Where's your car? I'm at Starbucks on Main Street. Please just... Can you come get me? I'll explain everything when you get here. The performance is beginning to crumble. I find Ellie sitting alone at a corner table, her coffee untouched and cold. Her face is blotchy from crying, her carefully applied makeup smeared beyond repair. She looks up when I approach, and I see genuine fear in her eyes for the first time since this whole thing began. She knows, Ellie whispers as I sit down across from her. Will, she knows everything. Who knows what? I ask, maintaining my role as the confused husband. Melissa. She knows about... Ellie glances around the coffee shop, then leans forward and lowers her voice even further. She knows about Connor and me. I let appropriate shock register on my face. What are you talking about? Someone sent her evidence. Audio recordings, text messages, everything. She played them for me, Will. She has recordings of us talking at your barbecue. The baby monitor. I wonder if Ellie has figured out how Melissa obtained that particular piece of evidence, or if she's too panicked to think clearly about the technical details. I don't understand, I say carefully. Are you telling me you're having an affair with Connor? The word affair hits her like a physical blow. She flinches and looks away, unable to meet my eyes. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she stammers. Will, I need you to know that I never meant for you to get hurt. I was going to tell you everything. I just needed more time to figure out how. How long? I ask quietly. 6 months, she admits. But Will, please understand. It's not about you. You're a wonderful husband, and I do love you. But Connor and we have this connection that I can't explain. The coffee shop suddenly feels too small, too public for this conversation. Other customers are starting to notice Ellie's distress, and I can see curious glances being thrown our way. Let's go home, I say, standing up from the table. We need to talk about this privately. The drive home passes in tense silence. Ellie stares out the passenger window, occasionally wiping tears from her cheeks. I focus on the familiar streets of our neighborhood, noting details with unusual clarity. The Hendersons' new mailbox, the Thompson boys' bicycles abandoned on their front lawn, the normalcy of suburban life continuing around us while our marriage disintegrates. Once we're inside our house, Ellie collapses onto the living room couch and begins crying in earnest. Deep, wrenching sobs that shake her entire body. Despite everything she's done, despite the months of lies and betrayal, seeing her in pain still affects me. 15 years of marriage doesn't disappear overnight, even when it's been built on deception. I sit down in the armchair across from her and wait for the tears to subside. When she finally looks up at me, her eyes are red and swollen but determined. I know you hate me right now, she begins, and you have every right to. What I did was inexcusable, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But Will, I need you to understand that this wasn't some casual fling or meaningless affair. I'm in love with Connor, really, truly in love with him. And what about us? I ask. What about our marriage, our life together, our plans for the future? I know this sounds terrible, but I haven't been happy for a long time, she admits. We've become roommates, Will. We go through the motions of being married, but there's no passion anymore, no excitement. When I'm with Connor, I feel alive again. The brutal honesty is almost refreshing after months of elaborate lies. At least now we're dealing with the truth, even if it's devastating. So what happens now? I continue. I don't know, Ellie says helplessly. Melissa is filing for divorce. She made that very clear this morning. And Connor, he's not handling any of this well. He's talking about leaving town, starting over somewhere else. And you? What do you want? She looks at me with something that might be hope. I want to be with Connor. But Will, I also don't want to destroy everything we've built together. Is there any way we can work through this? Maybe try counseling or separation instead of divorce? The question hangs in the air between us like smoke. She's asking me to help her manage the consequences of her betrayal, to make her transition to a new life as painless as possible. The audacity is breathtaking. Ellie, I say slowly, you've been lying to me for 6 months. You've been sleeping with my best friend in our bed, in our home. You've made me look like a fool to our friends and neighbors. And now, you want me to make this easy for you? No, she says quickly. I'm not asking you to make it easy. I know I've hurt you terribly, and I know there will be consequences. I'm just asking if there's any possibility of handling this like adults, without destroying each other in the process. I stand up from the armchair and walk to the window overlooking our backyard. The same backyard where we hosted the barbecue less than a week ago, where Connor and Ellie played their roles as friend and wife while planning their secret weekend together. I need time to think, I tell her without turning around. This is a lot to process. Of course, she agrees quickly. Take all the time you need. I'll stay in the guest room tonight. But as I listen to her footsteps retreating up the stairs, I'm already planning the next phase of my response. Because Ellie has made a crucial miscalculation. She thinks this is a private matter between the four of us, something that can be managed quietly through lawyers and mediation. She has no idea that I'm just getting started. The group chat notification appears on my phone at 8:30 that evening, while I'm sitting in my home office reviewing the evidence files one more time. It's from our regular friend group, the same people who attended Saturday's barbecue. Did anyone else hear about Connor and Melissa? Janet Henderson has written. My finger hovers over the notification, debating whether to open the full conversation. But curiosity wins, and I tap the screen to see the developing discussion. Hear what? Mike Thompson responds. Melissa called me this afternoon, Janet continues. She was really upset. Apparently Connor's been having an affair. The news is spreading faster than I anticipated. Melissa must have needed someone to talk to after her confrontation with Ellie this morning, and Janet Henderson has never been able to keep a secret for more than 24 hours. No way, someone else chimes in. Connor would never do that. That's what I thought too, Janet replies, but Melissa has evidence, audio recordings and text messages. She's filing for divorce. I watch the conversation unfold with fascination and growing satisfaction. Within an hour, all 12 members of our social circle are participating in the discussion. Shock, disbelief, requests for more details, speculation about who the other woman might be. No one has connected it to Ellie yet, but that's only a matter of time. I close the group chat without contributing to the discussion and lean back in my desk chair. Phase 1 is complete. Connor's secret is no longer secret, and the social consequences are already beginning to ripple outward. But this is just the beginning. Because Connor and Ellie didn't just betray their spouses, they betrayed an entire community of friends who trusted them, who welcomed them into their homes and shared their lives with them. And communities don't forgive that kind of deception easily, especially when they have help remembering exactly what they should be angry about. Friday morning brings an interesting development. Connor finally returns my call, but his voice sounds like he hasn't slept in days. "Will, we need to talk," he says, without preamble. "Can you meet me for coffee? Somewhere private?" "Sure," I reply, injecting just the right amount of concern into my tone. "Everything okay? You sound terrible." "I'll explain when I see you. How about that place on Riverside Drive? The one with the outdoor seating?" An hour later, I find Connor sitting at a corner table looking like he's aged 5 years in the past week. His usually perfect hair is disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, and there are dark circles under his eyes that suggest he's been drinking more than sleeping. "You look awful," I tell him as I sit down with my coffee. "Thanks," he says, with bitter humor. "That's exactly what I needed to hear today." "What's going on, Connor? Janet Henderson mentioned something about you and Melissa having problems." He winces at the mention of Janet's name. "So it's already making the rounds. Perfect." "What's making the rounds?" Connor looks at me for a long moment, as if trying to decide how much to reveal. Finally, he sighs and runs his hands through his hair. "Melissa's filing for divorce," he admits. "She thinks I'm having an affair." "Are you?" I ask directly. The question catches him off guard. He starts to answer, stops, then looks away toward the river flowing past the coffee shop's patio. "It's complicated," he says finally. "It's really not," I reply. "Either you're sleeping with someone else or you're not." "Will, I need you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. It started innocently enough, just friendship and conversation, but then it became something more, and I couldn't stop it." "Who is she?" Another long pause. Connor stares into his coffee cup as if it might provide answers to questions he doesn't want to face. "Someone you know," he says quietly. "Someone we both care about." I let the silence stretch between us, watching him struggle with the weight of his secret. Finally, he looks up and meets my eyes. "It's Ellie," he confesses. "Will, I'm so sorry. I know this is the worst possible betrayal, and I know you'll probably never forgive me, but I had to tell you the truth. I couldn't let you hear it from someone else." I take a sip of my coffee and consider my response. Connor is giving me the opportunity to react with shock and anger, to play the role of the devastated friend discovering the ultimate betrayal. But I'm tired of performances and pretending. "I know," I say simply. "What?" "I said I know. About you and Ellie. I've known for almost a week." Connor stares at me like I've just spoken in a foreign language. What do you mean you know?" "I mean I know about the hotel meetings, the fake book club dinners, the weekend trip to Portland that never happened. I know about the 6 months of lies and the plans you two were making for your future together." "How?" I pull out my phone and show him the baby monitor app. "Technology, Connor. The same system we installed to keep track of visiting children also happens to record audio from the kitchen, including your little heart-to-heart conversation during my barbecue." The color drains from his face as the implications sink in. "You recorded us?" "The system recorded you automatically. I just happened to check the files when I noticed you two acting strangely." "And you sent the evidence to Melissa?" "I did." Connor leans back in his chair, looking stunned. "Jesus, Will. Why didn't you just confront us directly? Why go behind our backs like this?" The question is so absurd that I almost laugh. "You're asking me why I went behind your back? Connor, you've been sleeping with my wife for 6 months. You've been lying to my face every time we talked, accepting my friendship while you planned to destroy my marriage. And you're upset about my methods? That's not... I mean, yes. What we did was wrong, but sending anonymous packages to my wife? That's cold, man. Really cold. Not as cold as using our guest bedroom while I was at a work conference." He has the decency to look ashamed at that reminder. Ellie told you about that? Ellie told me about everything. The whole sordid timeline of your relationship. She's very thorough when she's confessing. We sit in silence for several minutes, watching other customers come and go from the coffee shop. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that they're witnessing the final conversation between two former best friends. So what happens now? Connor asks eventually. Now you deal with the consequences of your choices, I reply. Melissa divorces you, Ellie and I get divorced, and we all move on with our lives. Will, I know you hate me right now, and I understand why, but is there any chance we can work through this? Maybe with time and counseling we could rebuild our friendship. I study his face, looking for signs of genuine remorse or understanding. What I see instead is the same charm that made him successful in sales, the practiced sincerity he uses to convince clients to sign contracts they don't really need. Connor, I say slowly, you didn't just sleep with my wife. You systematically deceived me for months while accepting my friendship, my business referrals, my trust. You sat at my dinner table and looked me in the eye while you lied about your feelings for my wife. You used my home for your affair, and then came to my barbecue and toasted our friendship. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm not finished, I interrupt. The worst part isn't even the affair itself. It's the calculation behind it. The planning and the cover stories and the way you both treated me like an obstacle to be managed rather than a person whose feelings mattered. Connor opens his mouth to respond, but I hold up my hand to stop him. So no, there's no chance of rebuilding our friendship. There's no chance of working through this with counseling or time or good intentions. What you and Ellie did can't be undone or forgiven or forgotten. It just is. I stand up from the table and pull out my wallet to leave money for my coffee. Will, wait, Connor calls after me. Please don't do this. Don't throw away 20 years of friendship over a mistake. I turn back to look at him one last time. Connor, this wasn't a mistake. Mistakes are accidents, momentary lapses in judgment, things that happen without planning or intention. What you did was a choice. A series of choices, made over and over again for 6 months. And the fact that you're still calling it a mistake tells me you don't understand what you've actually done, which means you'd probably do it again, given the right circumstances. I walk away without looking back, leaving Connor alone at the table with his coffee and his justifications. The drive home gives me time to process the conversation and plan my next moves. Connor's reaction was exactly what I expected. Self-pity mixed with attempts to minimize his responsibility and preserve what he could of our relationship. No real accountability, no genuine understanding of the damage he's caused, which makes the next phase of my plan easier to justify. When I get home, Ellie is waiting in the kitchen with 2 cups of tea and an expression of cautious hope. How did it go? She asks as I sit down across from her. About as well as you'd expect, I reply. He told me about the affair. What did you say? I told him I already knew. Ellie's face goes pale. You told him about the recording? I did. Will, I wish you'd talked to me before meeting with Connor. We could have presented a united front, maybe found a way to minimize the damage to everyone involved. The suggestion is so tone-deaf that I have to pause and make sure I heard her correctly. I study her face, searching for irony or shame, but find only anxious calculation. Ellie, you want me to help you minimize the damage from your affair? I'm not asking you to lie or cover anything up, she says quickly, hands lifting in a placating gesture. I just think we could handle this more gracefully if we work together instead of against each other. We've always been good at problem solving together. We stopped working together the day you decided to sleep with my best friend. My voice stays even, but the words land hard. That's not fair. Fair? I set down my teacup and look at her directly, really look at her, as if seeing her clearly for the first time in years. You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about fairness, Ellie. Is it fair that I've spent 6 months thinking I was happily married while you were planning to leave me? Is it fair that our friends are going to have to choose sides because you couldn't keep your marriage vows? Is it fair that I have to sell the house I love because you decided you needed more excitement in your life? She opens her mouth, then closes it again, overwhelmed by the momentum she can no longer control. Will, please, I'm not done. My hands are steady now. My thoughts finally lined up instead of colliding. Is it fair that I'm going to spend years in therapy trying to figure out what I did wrong in our marriage, wondering if I could have been a better husband, questioning every memory we've made together? Is it fair that I'll never be able to trust another woman completely because the person I trusted most in the world spent months lying to my face? Tears are streaming down her face now, quiet and continuous, but I can't bring myself to care. Not anymore. The time for sympathy has passed, worn away by late nights of doubt and the slow realization that none of this had been accidental. You made your choices, Ellie. You chose Connor over our marriage, excitement over stability, deception over honesty. Those were your decisions, and now you get to live with the consequences. We both do. So that's it? She asks, her voice breaking. You won't even consider counseling or a trial separation? You're just going to throw away 15 years of marriage without trying to save it? You threw it away 6 months ago, I reply. I'm just acknowledging the reality you created. That evening, I receive a text message from an unknown number. When I open it, I find a photo of Connor's BMW with all 4 tires slashed, parked outside his office building downtown. The message reads, "Thought you should know someone's not happy with your boy Connor. Word is getting around about what he did." I stare at the image for a long moment, then delete the message without responding. The implications are clear. The social consequences of Connor's affair are escalating beyond simple gossip and whispered conversations. Someone in our circle has decided that silence is no longer an option. Part of me should feel guilty about setting these events in motion, but mostly, I feel satisfied. Connor spent months treating me like a fool, confident that his charm and careful planning would protect him from consequences. Now, he's discovering that actions have reactions, and not all of them can be controlled or managed. My phone buzzes again with another message, this one from Janet Henderson. Will, I heard about Ellie and Connor. I'm so sorry. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to call. Word is spreading faster than I anticipated. By tomorrow morning, everyone in our social circle will know the truth about my wife and my former best friend. The private affair that Connor and Ellie thought they were managing so carefully is about to become very public indeed. I pour myself a glass of wine and sit on the back deck, looking out at the yard where we hosted our last barbecue as a married couple. The evening air is warm and still, carrying the scent of the roses Ellie planted along the fence line 3 years ago. Everything looks unchanged, and yet nothing is. Tomorrow I'll call a divorce attorney and begin the legal process of ending our marriage. I'll start making plans to sell the house and divide our assets, and figure out what my life looks like as a single man in his 40s. But tonight, I'm going to sit here and remember what it felt like to believe in friendship and marriage and the possibility that people you love won't betray you when it's convenient. Because once tomorrow comes, those illusions will be gone forever, and I'll have to learn how to live in the world as it actually is rather than the world I thought it was. The wine tastes bitter, but I drink it anyway. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way, and this is mine. 20 years of friendship, 15 years of marriage, gone. But for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I feel like I'm the one in control of what happens next. And that feeling, bitter as it is, tastes like freedom. Monday morning arrives with unexpected developments. I'm reviewing divorce attorney websites when my phone rings with a call from Melissa Dwyer. Will, I hope it's okay that I'm calling, she says, her voice strained but determined. I think we need to talk. Of course. How are you holding up? About as well as you'd expect. Listen, can we meet somewhere? There are things about Connor and Ellie that you need to know, things that go beyond just the affair. We agree to meet at a small restaurant outside town, somewhere neither of us is likely to encounter mutual friends or neighbors. When I arrive, I find Melissa sitting in a corner booth, looking exhausted but resolute. "Thank you for meeting me," she says as I slide into the seat across from her. "I know this is awkward for both of us. We're probably the only two people who understand what the other is going through right now," I reply. "That's exactly why I wanted to talk to you. Will, I've been going through Connor's papers and computer files since I kicked him out of the house. What I found, it's worse than just an affair." She pulls out a manila folder and sets it on the table between us. "Connor's been planning this for months, not just the relationship with Ellie, but the exit strategy. The way he was going to leave our marriage and help Ellie leave yours." I open the folder and find printed emails, financial documents, and what appears to be a timeline written in Connor's handwriting. The scope of the planning is staggering. "He opened a separate bank account 3 months ago," Melissa explains. "He's been moving money there gradually, small amounts that wouldn't trigger automatic notifications. He also contacted a divorce attorney in February, long before you caught them at the barbecue." "February? But they said the affair only started 6 months ago." "That's what they told us, but look at this." She points to a printed email dated 8 months earlier. Connor writing to Ellie about how much he enjoyed their coffee meeting and how he couldn't stop thinking about her. The betrayal runs deeper than I realized. They've been lying about the timeline, minimizing the duration and premeditation of their relationship. What they presented as a spontaneous attraction that got out of hand was actually a calculated campaign to destroy both our marriages. "There's more," Melissa continues. "Connor's been researching property values in different states, North Carolina specifically. He and Ellie were planning to relocate together once the divorces were finalized." "They were going to leave town?" "More than that. Connor's been in contact with pharmaceutical companies in the Research Triangle area. He was planning to get a new job and start over somewhere nobody knows about their history." I lean back in the booth, processing this information. Connor and Ellie weren't just having an affair. They were executing a comprehensive plan to abandon their current lives and build new ones together. The weekend trips, the secret meetings, the elaborate cover stories, all of it was preparation for a future that excluded Melissa and me entirely. "Why are you showing me this?" I ask. "Because I think they're still planning to go through with it," Melissa replies. "Connor may have moved out of our house, but he hasn't given up on his plan. He's just adjusting the timeline." "What do you mean?" "He called me yesterday, trying to negotiate the divorce settlement. He wants to expedite everything, get it finalized as quickly as possible, and he's willing to give me more than I'd normally be entitled to if I agree to his timeline." The implications are clear. Connor is trying to buy his way out of the marriage quickly so he can start his new life with Ellie. The generous settlement isn't about fairness or guilt. It's about removing obstacles to his escape plan. "What are you going to do?" I ask. "I'm going to make sure he doesn't get what he wants," Melissa says with quiet determination. Connor thinks he can manage the consequences of his choices, minimize the damage and move on to his happy ending. But he's wrong. She reaches into her purse and pulls out another folder, thicker than the first. "I've been documenting everything. The financial manipulation, the timeline of deception, the evidence of premeditation. My attorney says it's enough to challenge any settlement Connor might try to negotiate." "You're going to fight him in court?" "I'm going to make sure he pays for what he's done. Not just financially, but professionally and socially. Connor's built his career on relationships and trust. What happens when his clients learn about his character?" I study Melissa's face, seeing a reflection of my own anger and determination. She's not just a betrayed spouse seeking revenge. She's a strategic thinker planning a comprehensive response to systematic deception. "There's something else," she continues. "I think Ellie's been lying to you about her intentions. Based on what I found in Connor's files, she's been planning to file for divorce for weeks. The confession she gave you, the tears and remorse, I think it was all performance designed to manage your reaction. What makes you think that? Email exchanges between her and Connor about handling Will and managing the transition. They've been strategizing about how to minimize your ability to cause problems for their plans. The folder contains printed screenshots of text messages between Connor and Ellie, discussing my likely reactions and how to manipulate my responses. They analyzed my personality like a problem to be solved, predicting my moves and planning countermeasures. They think they know you, Melissa says. Connor told Ellie you'd be hurt but reasonable, that you'd want to handle everything quietly to avoid public embarrassment. They're counting on your engineer's mind to choose the most logical, least disruptive solution. Which would be? Quick, amicable divorce with minimal drama. They get their freedom, you get your dignity, everyone moves on with their lives. I close the folder and look across the table at Melissa. But that's not what you have in mind. No, she says with a slight smile. That's not what I have in mind at all. We spend the next hour planning a coordinated response to our spouse's deception. Melissa has access to Connor's professional network through his company directory. I have relationships with mutual friends and neighbors who still don't know the full scope of what Connor and Ellie have done. The plan we develop is elegant in its simplicity. Instead of allowing Connor and Ellie to control the narrative and timeline of our divorces, we're going to expose the full truth about their relationship and their plans, not through dramatic confrontations or public scenes, but through systematic revelation of facts they thought would remain private. Connor's company has a morality clause in their employment contracts, Melissa explains. Conduct that reflects poorly on the company's reputation can be grounds for termination. His affair with a married woman, combined with the financial deception he's practiced in our marriage, could cost him his job. And Ellie's PR firm prides itself on managing corporate reputations, I add. Having an employee whose personal life becomes a public scandal won't reflect well on their brand. We're not planning anything illegal or unethical. We're simply going to ensure that the people who need to know the truth have access to accurate information about Connor and Ellie's character and judgment. There's one more thing, Melissa says, as we prepare to leave the restaurant. I think we should tell them what we're planning. Give them the opportunity to understand the full consequences of their choices before we implement our response. You want to warn them? I want them to know that their actions have reactions, and that some of those reactions can't be controlled or managed. They've been operating under the assumption that they're the only ones making strategic decisions. It's time they learned otherwise. That evening, I call Ellie into the living room for what I know will be our final serious conversation as husband and wife. I met with Melissa today. I begin without preamble. Ellie's face goes pale. What did she want? She wanted to show me the evidence she's gathered about your relationship with Connor. The real evidence, not the sanitized version you gave me last week. I place Melissa's folders on the coffee table between us and watch Ellie's expression change as she recognizes some of the documents. The affair didn't start 6 months ago, I continue. It started at least 8 months ago, possibly longer. Connor's been planning your exit strategy since February, including job opportunities in North Carolina and a timeline for relocating together. Will, I can explain. You've been lying to me about everything. The duration of the affair, your intentions for our marriage, even your emotional state during our conversations. The tears and remorse and requests for counseling were all calculated to manage my reaction while you finalized your plans. Ellie stares at the folders without speaking, her face cycling through emotions I can't quite read. Melissa and I are going to make sure Connor's employer knows about his character and judgment, I tell her. We're going to ensure your colleagues at the PR firm understand what kind of person they're working with. We're going to document everything for our divorce proceedings, and we're going to make sure our friends and neighbors know the full truth about what you've both done. You can't do that, Ellie says quietly. Will, that would destroy our careers, our reputations, our ability to start over. You should have considered those consequences before you started planning your new life together. But we never meant for anyone to get hurt. Stop. I hold up my hand to cut her off. Don't insult my intelligence with more lies. You knew exactly who would get hurt, and you decided we were acceptable casualties for your happiness. Ellie looks down at her hands, finally abandoning the pretense of remorse or innocence. What do you want from us? She asks. I want you to understand that actions have consequences, and that some of those consequences can't be avoided or managed or negotiated away. You and Connor made your choices. Now you get to live with all of them. My voice is calm when I say it, calmer than I would have thought possible a month ago. There's no anger left to fuel me, no need to raise my voice or dramatize the moment. I'm not trying to hurt her anymore. I'm explaining reality, the way you explain gravity to someone who's about to step off a ledge. And if we agree to whatever terms you want for the divorce, if we make this as easy as possible for you? She's grasping for structure, for a transaction that might still put limits on the damage. For years, negotiations worked for her, compromises, half-truths wrapped in reassurance. This is the first time she's realizing there's nothing left to bargain with. Then you'll still face the professional and social consequences of your deception. Those aren't negotiable, Ellie. They're just the natural result of the choices you've made. I watch that sink in. Watch the calculation stop. There's no angle here, no clever solution she hasn't thought of. For the first time since I've known her, she's out of moves. She looks up at me with something that might be respect mixed with fear. Not love, not remorse, recognition. You're not the man I thought I married. No, I agree. I'm not the man you thought you could manipulate and manage while you destroyed our life together. That man existed because I trusted you completely. But trust, once broken, can't be repaired. It can only be replaced with something else. Her shoulders sag slightly, as if the weight of that statement finally settles. And what's it being replaced with? Knowledge, I reply. Clear-eyed understanding of who you really are and what you're actually capable of. The words hang between us, heavier than any insult could have been. There's no coming back from being truly seen. The next morning, Ellie moves out of our house and into a furnished apartment across town. There's no argument, no dramatic exit. She takes only her personal belongings, clothes, her laptop, a few framed photos, leaving behind 15 years of shared possessions and memories. The house looks the same when she leaves, but it feels fundamentally different, like a stage after the actors have walked off. Connor calls me that afternoon, his voice tight with controlled anger. He sounds like a man who still believes he can steer this conversation if he chooses the right tone. Melissa told me about your meeting yesterday, he says. Will, what you're planning is vindictive and unnecessary. We can handle our divorces like adults without destroying each other professionally. Connor, you spent 8 months planning to abandon your marriage and help my wife abandon hers. You manipulated both of us while you executed your strategy. Adult behavior would have been honesty from the beginning. There's a sharp exhale on the other end of the line. He's irritated now. Cornered. So this is revenge? This is consequences. There's a difference. Will, please, think about what you're doing. Ellie and I made mistakes, but we don't deserve to have our careers destroyed over personal relationship issues. You made choices, I correct him. Deliberate, calculated choices over an extended period of time. And one of those choices was to treat Melissa and me like obstacles to be managed, rather than people whose feelings mattered. That's not true. Connor, I've seen your emails. The ones where you and Ellie discussed handling Will and managing the transition. You analyzed my personality to predict my reactions and plan countermeasures. You treated our friendship like a problem to be solved. The silence on the other end of the line stretches for nearly a minute. Long enough for him to realize denial isn't going to save him. What do you want? He asks finally. I want you to understand that some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. I want you to know that some consequences can't be avoided through charm or negotiation or strategic planning, and I want you to remember this feeling the next time you're tempted to treat someone's trust as a resource to be exploited. Goodbye, Connor. I hang up and turn off my phone, then pour myself a glass of wine and sit on the back deck as the sun sets over the neighborhood where I'll no longer be living much longer. The air is cool, quiet, honest. Tomorrow, the full truth about Connor and Ellie's relationship will begin making its way through their professional networks. Their carefully planned fresh start will become significantly more complicated when potential employers and clients understand the character and judgment they demonstrated in their personal lives. It's not revenge, despite what Connor believes. It's simply the natural consequence of their choices catching up with them in ways they didn't anticipate or plan for. They wanted excitement and passion and a new beginning. Now they'll have all of those things, along with the professional and social costs that come with building happiness on the foundation of other people's pain. The wine tastes better tonight, less bitter than before. Maybe because I'm finally done pretending that any of this could have ended differently. Some lessons can only be learned through experience, and Connor and Ellie are about to get an education in the real cost of betrayal. 20 years of friendship and 15 years of marriage are ending, but for the first time since this began, I'm looking forward to what comes next. Because whatever that future holds, it will be built on truth instead of lies, and that makes all the difference in the world.